Right, so here's the agenda. We have a little bit of delay today, but we are here in the opening talk. All right, here's the organizers. So the Lawrence, I don't see her here, and then myself is there, and then Billy is there, and Ali is there, Lance is there, and Nav is there. So why I'm doing this? Next one, code of conduct. So we want to make the inclusive the event all the time. So if you see any problems, find us. I will show you again our faces here. All right, so for this event, we have co-hosts. So GDG Cloud Montreal, and the Flutter Montreal, WTM Montreal, GDSC McGill, and GDSC Concordia, and GDG Montreal. And we have sponsors for this event. One is the Google Developer Group from Google, and MyTem here. They are providing this venue. And we have Flutter Flow, and we have JetBrains, and then Pact, the book publisher. So there's a message from Flutter Flow that doing the small introduction. I'm going to play the video. Wait. So the audio is not. No. It's fine. Stacy, can you change the audio output to the HDMI? Normally there's the option to, it's M-Star actually. Yeah? Okay, so actually.
Hi everyone, I'm Leah, and I'm the head of product here at Flutterflow. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Flutterflow product and our vision. So here at Flutterflow, our mission is to help the world build great products. And right now we're focusing on apps, mostly mobile apps, web apps, and a little bit of desktop apps. And there are a lot of tools at your disposal when it comes to actually building and creating applications. So on the very low level end of the spectrum, so low level abstraction layer, you have pretty hard to use programming languages like intense machine code, or maybe you're writing code that talks directly to graphics APIs. And that gives you a lot of control, but of course it's really hard and difficult to do. Now on the other end of the spectrum, you have things that are more higher abstraction. So design tools or traditional low-code tools. And maybe these are easier to use and maybe you can work in them faster, but you often have to make trade-offs, like maybe you can't build all the qualities or of the features of the apps that you want to build, or the app that comes out of this type of tool is maybe lower quality. So that's why we've kind of put Flutterflow in its very own category. And we think about Flutterflow as being lower level abstraction compared to traditional low-code tools, but a bit higher than a framework like Flutter. And I like to refer to Flutterflow as a visual development environment because you're still developing an app and you kind of need to think like a developer, but you're doing this in this visual environment. So the way this works is you're working in this user interface, the Flutterflow platform, and you're dragging and dropping widgets, you're configuring the UI, you're setting properties, you're creating logic or functions or interactivity. And as you're making these changes to your app in Flutterflow, we're saving these changes in this intermediary state. And this is what's used to then generate Flutter code for an app that can be run on iOS, Android, web, or desktop. So the end result of building an app in Flutterflow is actually a repository of Flutter and Dart code. So our goal for developers is that we make you faster. We think that if you're building in this visual development environment, you'll be much faster than if you were having to write all this code by hand. But the key thing here is we don't want you to sacrifice on your app's quality or sacrifice any features, which we think is normally what happens when you go to these higher level abstraction tools. So our goal is really, again, to allow you to build in this visual development environment and then give you a repository of code that follows best practices. So the anatomy of a Flutter app looks something like this. You have a widget that represents your page, and maybe you have a widget that represents a layout, like a column, and then you have atomic widgets like buttons and text. And these are all influenced by theme or style constants to make your app kind of look and feel nice. And of course you have custom widgets, so maybe you want to create your own custom design system. And this maps pretty well with the types of resources that you see inside of the Flutterflow application. So instead of creating an app widget, you create a project in Flutterflow. And instead of creating a page widget, you create a page in Flutterflow. And then you have these built-in widgets that you can drag and drop into your widget tree within Flutterflow. And these are things like layout widgets, like columns and rows, or atomic widgets, like buttons and text elements. And of course, in Flutterflow, you can also build totally custom widgets or UI components. So these can be composed of out-of-the-box widgets, like we mentioned before, or these can be composed of custom code. So you can just write Dart code to create a totally custom Flutter widget and add it to your Flutterflow app. And we also have, theming, design systems, and all those sorts of things. So this is an idea of what you'll see if you're logging into the Flutterflow platform. I can see pages that I've added to my app over on the left-hand side on the upper part of the screen. And then when I've selected a specific page, like this product detail page, I can see all the widgets or UI components that have been added to this page. And this widget tree is what you see on this canvas. So this canvas basically represents what your app would look like when you're fully running it. And on the right-hand side, you're configuring different properties for those widgets. And of course, this is just a very high-level introduction, so there's lots more that you can do with Flutterflow. We have a great set of tutorials on our YouTube page and lots of awesome documentation, so I definitely implore you to check it out. Thanks so much. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, thanks to the Flutterflow. So did you like it, the Flutterflow? All right. All right, so next one is the actually Maltem, so providing this good venue.
Hello there. It's quite a few of you, that's great. So I'm really pleased to have you tonight. As you may notice, I have a terrible English, so in advance, don't mind me, please, if I'm searching my word from some point. I would like to thank you to be here tonight for this Google event, which is hosted by GDG. I'm sure they will be wonderful to hear. But a bit before we are Maltem, as you may know, our goal is to help other companies to build and improve their information system with more efficiency and maybe more innovation. To introduce myself a bit further, I'm Geoffroy from Maltem's sales team, and I will be your touch point if you ever need Maltem to help you on your IT corporate subjects. But you can also meet Jenny right here if you are seeking for job and opportunities, or Capucine right there, which helped GDG to organize this event tonight. I don't have much to tell you, so I'll be quick. Just enjoy your time here, enjoy your speakers, have fun, and we will love to get to know you and what you are doing a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So first talk is from Nav. So what's new in Android?
Hi, everyone. So a little bit about myself first. So my name is Nav. I'm working as a senior mobile engineer at Manulife, Google developer expert for Android, and also a part of GDG Montreal team. So in today's talk, we will go through the announcements that we have at Google I/O related to the Android. So I categorize into different categories. So material design, compose, user security, Android 15, and tooling. So we will go through one by one. So let's start. So first I will start with the material design. So starting with material design version 1.3, we got some new components. So the first one is the segmented buttons. So before, if you remember, or if you have ever worked with material design in your mobile applications, we have like the old design system, which is called M2 or Material Design 2. But now we are using the M3, which is we also call a Material 3. So we got a couple of new variants for the segmented buttons, as you see on the screen. And then for if you are developing apps for Android and if you are using Compose, so we also got a new API which is called a pull to refresh. So it was there before, like a 1.6 version, like from the Material 3, but recently with 1.3 Alpha 06, they rewrote the API to make things much simpler than before. So if you want to use these components, like a pull to refresh into your applications, although it's at alpha stage, but it's, I think, pretty solid at this point to use it in production apps. Some of the apps are already using these components. And the next component from material design is the carousel. It's still work in progress, but yeah, I didn't remember the exact version, like since which version this is available, but this is also coming to the Material 3 specifically for Jetpack Compose. So the next thing is the adaptive libraries. So in this case, like if you are developing applications for multi-form factors, so like tablets or foldables or things like that, they introduced a new 3 new libraries, like a navigation, suite scaffold, list detail, and the spotting pane. So if you are already familiar with like window size classes that we use to figure out like the application is running on which device, for example, it's a foldable or a tablet. So under the hood, these 3 libraries basically using the window size class for us as a developers. So they make our life more easier to directly use these components, and they will automatically adjust the your application's UI based on the available window. Like for example, this is the screenshot from the navigation suite scaffold. So it will automatically use the bottom nav if the window is compact, which is like mobile, and if it's a tablet, it will use the navrail, things like that. And the next thing is about the design system. So they also provided, starting with Android 15, there is a option to check if there is a contrast available at the system level. And based on the contrast level, if it's available, you can also customize your color scheme that you can, then later on you can use it with your theming in your application. So, but this is available with starting with Android 15. So in the next section, I will go through a couple of the new APIs that are introduced for specifically for accessibility. So there are 2 new apps that are for basically for the end users. The first one is called Lookout. So this is for the people, those who have some sort of vision impairment, so that it will help them to easily access the content on their phones, or if they want to use any sort of things on their mobile. With this app helps them. And then the next one is the Relate. It's basically sort of a it's for the speech impairment. So if any of the the end users, they have any sort of speech impairments, this app helps them to basically translate or generate live captions, things like that. And starting with Android 15, there are a couple of new libraries or the APIs available for accessibility. So the first one is the container-based navigation. I will show you code in the next slides. This is basically really helpful in case of lists or grids. And then we have a custom collection sizes. And custom collection size is basically helpful when we have a long list of items, and sometimes we use the decorative content in our item in the list. So if we are, let's say, showing 10, the names of the persons, the contact list, but we also have dividers in there. So accessibility, the tools like TalkBack, it will show as 20 items, but actually there are meaningful items are only, let's say, 15. So this API helps us to actually providing the exact amount, the number of items are available in our list. And then last one is it's not the API, it's basically the feature, maximize high contrast. So when users enable this in their device settings, so for all the text, it will actually add the background color to the text, so it's easily visible or easily accessible for the end users. So yeah, so this is the example of the code. So the first one is to adding to the container title. So it's available only for Android 15. So we initialize the accessibility delegate node for particular view where we want to add it, and then we can say info.container title. So when we enable it, and it's basically, I think in the coming versions, if there is a navigation available for container-based navigation, so then user can skip the long list. Otherwise, if your screen or your particular activity has a list, it will the user will end up with going through each and every item. But if you set the container title, it will basically help the end user to skip those lists and navigate to the next component. And the next one is for a collection size. So as I mentioned, we have two different counts. The first one is set item count. Basically, here we set the total number of items. And then the next important thing is the set important for accessibility item count. So here we provide actually the real number of items that are valuable to the end user. Next, I will go through the updates about the widgets. So we got the API, it's a compose-based framework called Glance. It's right now stable, it's a 1.1.0. And you can now develop your widgets also totally using Jetpack Compose. You don't need to write XML-based layouts for your Compose. And it has two major components that you need to provide the implementation for. So the Glance app widget receiver, which is basically a receiver specifically for widgets, and then Glance app widget where you provide all the UI for your widgets. So this is basically the sample code for the widget, and then there is a preview. So starting with Cola recent, I think the latest version, we also got an option to actually preview our widget components, the previews for the widget composables within the Android Studio, so we don't need to rerun every time. So next, I will go through the on-device AI for Android. So the available model for the on-device, it's a Gemini Nano Foundation model, and it's only available from API 14. And it's also available for particular devices. I think right now it's for Pixel 8 Pro and S24 Samsung. And we go, as a developers, if we want to consume it or we want to integrate it into our applications, we need to use the Google AI Edge SDK. So for example, this is the screenshot here. If Android application, it will use the Google AI Edge SDK to interact with the AI core, and then you can go from there to integrate, start interacting with the model and use it in your applications. So next, I will go through the couple of app experience related updates. So the first one is edge to edge. So starting with Android 15, so as you see in the screenshot, now the by default behavior is edge to edge for all the applications. And you might need to test your applications to make sure it doesn't break anything. So now your application is going to draw the content behind the status bars and the navigation bars. So that's starting with Android 15. And the next one is predictive back. It's there since Android 13, but with Android 15, they removed the option of developer. Like before, it was behind the developers options, like the developers flag, but now it's by default enabled. So if your application is supporting these predictive back animations, you will see some sort of those sort of these type of animations when a user is performing a back gesture on your application. Next is the photo picker. So if your application is having some sort of functionality or use case where you are allowing users to select photos in your application, and you are still using like an old mechanism for asking permissions to access their storage and then accessing photos from there. So in that case, it's the right time to actually move or migrate to the photo picker, which is like a permissionless picker. It's like a system level available. It's available for all the way back to version Android 19, I guess. So you can use this one. So in this case, you don't need any sort of permissions, and you can easily integrate it with your applications. And the last one is the app access risk. I will show you next, like what's that. So for the edge to edge, you just need to call enable edge to edge in each activity of your application. So it will automatically handle the colors for your status bars and the navigation bars, but sometimes you might need to handle it if your application is still XML based, but for compose based applications, it's pretty much handled by when you're calling this method. And for the photo picker, as I mentioned, like there is no runtime permissions, and it also provides access to the cloud photos storages available, for example, Google Photos. And for the predictive back, there are a couple of animations like back to home, like when user is going from activity to back to your home screen. And then there is a cross activities, like if you are going from activity B to the previous activity, and cross task animations are also there. And last one is the app access risk. So there are two ways, like they provided a functionalities capturing, like if there is any app is running and currently capturing anything on the screen, this API, you can use this API to figure out that. And the last one is the controlling, if any app which is running currently on your device and try to control your device. So next I will go through the updates related to the Jetpack Compose. So these are the couple of updates. So the first one is the strong skipping mode. So if you are already using Compose, you might see, or you might have a challenging time to figure out why your composable is recomposing a particular component. So sometimes you need to capture or remember the lambdas in your code to make sure that it's not recomposing. So this is the new feature, which is strong skipping mode. It's right now we need to enable it in our Gradle configuration, but it's going to be by default on by next release. And the next one is the compiler moves to the Kotlin repository. So right now, we as a developers, we need to configure it by ourselves, and we need to make sure every time we need to update the version of Kotlin separately, and then we update the version of compiler. But now things like they make it more simpler than before. So we just need to update the Kotlin version, and compiler is also within that repository. I will show you the next slide, like how we configure it now. The next component is list animations. So with the help of the animate item, starting with the June release of Compose, you can easily integrate the animations to in your Compose lists. And then there is a shared element transition support is also available, starting with the latest release of Jetpack Compose, as you see in the little GIF at the side. And they also provided a new layouts or the new composables, basically contextual flow, row, and column. So instead, if it depends on your use case, if you want to use these components, you can. And then Then there is a rich content support for the text fields. So now you can also integrate the support for animated content to your text view, so user can basically cut, copy, paste, or basically use the anime keyboard with the text fields for the compose. And the next one is the camera viewfinder compose. So this is the composable for to display the camera preview in your compose based UIs. The next one is UI check mode. So if you are really care about accessibility of your application, so within the preview windows there is a new option called UI check mode. So when you preview your composable, you just run this mode and it will show you all the errors in your particular preview, like if there is any color contrast issues or if there is any touch target size issues are there. I mean, like all sort of accessibility related issues you can easily find within the preview. So it saves a little bit time. Otherwise you need to run the applications like accessibility scanner to catch these sort of issues. And the next point is accessibility scanner also now supports for compose. So now if you are testing your application's accessibility using this accessibility scanner, it provides you the detailed information related to the compose components also. So yeah, this is the example code of like the old way of managing the compiler version for our Android applications. And the new one is basically the upper one. You just define the plugin, compose, and just define the ID and the version, and then you don't need this particular specific code for a compiler option or the compose options for your application, starting with the Kotlin 2.0. So next I will go through the user security. So there is a new feature called a Google Play Protect. And now it will recommend the real-time scan for all the applications, and if it finds any sort of issues with the applications, it will automatically provide you the information when you run any particular app. So starting with Android 15, there is a little bit enhancement for the screen sharing. Now we can, as an end user, we can select a particular window or particular application that we want to share instead of like the full content on our screen. But there is a still option, like if you still want to share the entire screen, you can. And then there is at a OS level, there is a private space. So as an end user, we can create a private space if you want to put some your secure like applications like a banking information or things like that. You can create a private space and put your content in there, and you need to provide up like the user log or access to access that information. And the last one is for the explicit intents. So starting with 15, if intent needs to match all the parameters, if whenever the Android application or any external application wants to interact with any other application. And they introduced a new API called a strict mode for these sort of errors. So during the development, we get the errors like mismatch violations when we test this, so it's easy for developers. And next one is the tooling. So Android team basically changed the way they provide updates to the Android Studio. So now they separate it into two parts. The first one is basically just it's called a platform update. So as you know, it's Android Studio. It's based on IntelliJ IDEA. So whenever there is a platform update from the IntelliJ comes up, so Android Studio, they just do the only specifically for the platform. There is no bug improve, like no features or no anything new features related to Android Studio comes with platform update. But later they call it like a feature drop. So with that, when that comes, like Android Studio, for example, for Koala, is the feature drop will include all the new features and the bug fixes from the Android team. So starting with the Koala, there are a couple of new features. The first one is the sticky lines. So I don't have demo, but if you as you scroll your content or your long like a file, you will see the methods. It will stick at the top, so you will easily have a reference like where you are actually. And then the breakpoints with the lambda inlines. So I don't know if it's visible, but as I point, like at the debug point in this particular line, as I'm using a couple of Lambda functions on the list, it highlights all those functions. If I want to debug particular function, I can put the debug option, like that debug only that particular function instead of like the full Lambda. Then there is a new option for emulator windows. Like if you are running multiple emulators in your Android Studio, there is an option actually now split and move, like right or down, so you can easily interact with multiple emulators at the same time instead of switching between one and other. And there is a new way to actually access the Gemini. Now if you want to integrate or use Gemini in Android Studio, it will ask you these configurations. So you can select like if you want to give it access to your contacts, so you will get more information or more help from the Gemini based on your current project, and you can select based on your project per project, or like just give it like a global access, things like that. And you can easily configure these changes. Like if you want to change it later, you can easily by going through the Android Studio settings. Then starting with the Android Koala platform update, which is already stable, we also got the new terminal, and it's right now in beta, so you need to enable it. So you will see not just like all the white color, all the information is not just in the white text, but you can see like the colorful information, and it's really helpful to identify what's going on in the terminal. And the next one is the access to the pull request within the IDE. So if you have configured your GitHub with your Android Studio, now you don't need to switch, actually go to the web, like your web browser or any other tool to actually see the pull requests. So you can easily access the pull request within the IDE, and you can also approve or add comments to particular pull request from the Android Studio. And K2 compiler is also available right now in alpha, particularly in Android Studio. So if you want to try K2 compiler for Kotlin, you just go to the Kotlin settings and then enable the K2 compiler mode for your projects. So the next update is about the connection speed warning. So whenever you connect your device to your Android Studio for testing purposes, and you will see this sort of warning if you're using like a duplicate cable, or like the quality of the cable is not good. You will see the pop-up warning in Android Studio, like the speed is this, and if you want higher speed, you can switch to the other cable. And the next one is the device settings. So before this functionality, like if we want to test dark theme or any other sort of functionality for our application, we need to actually use the device settings, like go to the device and then change from there. But now, like it doesn't matter if you have connected the emulator or if you have connected the real device. From the device settings, you can change the theme, or you can turn on the talkback. You can change the font size. You can change the screen size from within the IDE. So you don't need to actually go to the device settings. And the next one is the profiler redesign. So now with the profiler, you will see a lot more options. And it's particularly like if you want to select whichever. Otherwise, the older option was like CPU profiler, memory profiler, things like that. But now you will see things like this. So this is the new interface for the profiler in Android Studio. And it's in Koala feature drop. So the last part is the AI. So StudioBot is now called a Gemini. So Android is, if you are looking for StudioBot, it's now called a Gemini, and you can find it with the Gemini icon in your studio. And this is currently in, I think this is not available yet to try, but this sort of functionality is also coming. It's called transform select mode, and you will see a lot of options. If you want to edit your code and then you want to refine the prompt, like adding a documentation, for example, in this case. you can refine and tell it to do more. And like in this case, we say add some documentation. And then you can select based on that if you want to accept these changes or not. We have time? No? So I will skip this. I will share the slides, or you can check the developer keynote from IO and you will find this.
Started. So in front of me, I have a brand new project. And let me open up the Gemini chat window.
This is
Now,
really actually
sometimes you might
a
get a mock-up
cool
designer
feature
as a
from
trade-off
the,
resource.
which is
Get
coming
started.
right now. It's in preview. So you give it like a Figma design screens to the Gemini. And if you have
So in this
access,
case, I have
give
a
access to
wireframe
your,
mock-up of a login
your code
screen
base, it
with
will
Nginx.
generate the code for
So
you
select that
for the design screen. It's like a all composed code. You just give it
Enter
a
quick
design
prompt
screen.
here, and let me get this started. Now,
So
what's happening
this
here
is
as
like
I'm
what
using
they
the
show
live
us in
context
at
window
Google
of
I/O.
Gemini
So we give it
1.5
the
Pro,
screen
that's
and
coming
it will
later
generate
this
all the
year
composed
for Android
code.
developers. This allows you to do higher quality multimodal input. Again, what we did here was upload a wireframe to an app and give it a very informative prompt that reads, for the image provided, use Jetpack Compose to build a screen so the composed preview is as close as possible to this image. And also make sure to include imports and use Material 3. So with all these put together, we get a multimodal response back from the Gemini model. Okay, so here it is. All right, so we have a main activity here. It's using Material 3. All right, so let me just copy that to my clipboard.
I will skip this because of the time
That's
constraint,
your
but
file.
you can actually watch the full video on the Google I/O
Close this.
playlist.
Let's open up the preview here.
And the last one is the KMM support on the Android side. So if you are developing for cross platforms, there are support for expanded to the new libraries from Android side for Room and Data Store. So all these libraries are now fully migrated to the KMM support. Yep, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Nav. All right, so we will start talk about Flutter. So here, do we have Flutter developer here? No one? Really? Okay, that's fine, We'll talk about it. So I am part of I'm member of the Flutter Montreal. So me, Billy, Ali, and Lance, we are the Flutter Montreal organizer. So we prepared the slide together. And if you want to join our community, I know there's not many Flutter developer, maybe one or two, I guess. You can come to the Discord channel, or you can find us in the fluttermtl.dev. All right, so here's the agenda: simple introduction, and then all announcement and some summary. All right, introduction. All right, so what is Flutter? Flutter is the cross-platform framework made by Google, and then it's heavily maintained by community. And why you use Flutter? It's portable, so you can make different the platform application: Android, iOS, desktop, web. I think Linux system, yeah, Linux, Windows, or macOS, and everything. And it's beautiful. We control pixel by pixel on the application, so you can be creative as much as you want with the Flutter, and it's fast. It's like it's compiled into native code. So like you are making the C++ application, C application, you compile to native code. Flutter is the same thing. That's why Flutter is super fast. And Flutter is productivity. There's a dev tool is really good. So like the nice feature like hot reloading, you just save your code and then it right away it apply into your application. You can easily debug your code and then you can write the application easily. And it's open. So there's I don't know, I didn't check the rank in the GitHub, but star rank in the GitHub is like the first 10. So it's a really community-driven project. It's not only made by Google. Okay? All right, so just version. So Flutter 1.0 introduced after 2018, and then the 2.0 and 3.0. And now we have Flutter 3.22 and Dart 3.4. That's what we're going to talk today. Right, a little showcase. So I know there's not many Flutter dev here. So, but probably I want to show you that some big players are adopting Flutter. So Virgin Money, they recently adopted Flutter to make their mobile app. And Geico and Supercell, the gaming company, and Universal Studio, they also use the Flutter. And Canonical, I don't know if you know Ubuntu, the installer in the Ubuntu, that's written in Flutter. So Flutter is actually native in Ubuntu now. And LG, they are also adapting for their TV. So they are using the Flutter, I mean, embedding their Flutter into WebOS, I think. All right, so more announcement. So Impeller. Okay, so I'm going to do it. All right, so Impeller is, what is Impeller? So it's a new rendering engine for Flutter. So Flutter used to use the rendering engine called Skia. There was a little bit of an issue of the performance when you do the heavy animation, the application, the frame rate was a little bit dropping, or sometimes it looked like stuttering and so on. So Google is fixing that by replacing the rendering engine with Impeller. So that makes it, improving the animation, and then they are really focusing on the efficiency. So what they do is that they actually pre-compile all the shaders, so that normally when stuttering happening is when shader is compiling, right? So they pre-compile everything, so that makes it reduce all the stuttering and the performance issues. And they use hardware acceleration. So now they are using the Meta or Vulkan API to make it chip optimized. And yeah, thanks to the performance update, and now Flutter is also adapting the 3D. So it's not ready yet, but 3D is coming to the Flutter. I don't think I'm going to play this one, but that is like side-by-side demo. Left side is Kia, and the right side is the Impeller. So Impeller is consisting staying in the 60 frame rate. And then the other one is going drop and then up. So that is just circle is rolling, and then it's just showing you that left side is stuttering, right side is smooth. That's what they're showing. But I don't think you can actually see it in this screen. So that's why I'm skipping it. All right, so what is new in the Google I/O for the Impeller? Impeller was already there for the iOS. It was already stable support. But for the Android side, it was not supported yet. So Google announced that they finished Vulkan backend implementation. So if your Android phone supports Vulkan API, then now it's working. So here is the little bit the platform, the status of the platform. So iOS is default. If you compile any Flutter app, by default, it's running in the Impeller. For the macOS, you need to do some flag to compile it. So it's working in that way. And then Android, with the flag, you can actually make the Impeller app for Android, but it's going to only work for the Vulkan API-enabled devices. So modern devices all have Vulkan. So actually, most of them is actually already working. But for the older devices, you're still using OpenGL only. That's still in development. So it's coming. All right, for the WebAssembly, Billy, you want to talk?
So for this Google I/O, they announced WebAssembly. So basically, when you build Flutter apps on the web, it renders with two modes, so Canvas Kit and HTML. So basically, for example, Canvas is like a canvas element, and it just draw on it. So they just did something new. They completely changed the rendering engine to wasm. So to understand a bit why they go through WebAssembly, you have to understand what is a website and what is a web app. So basically, a website is more about indexing fast. So when you just type enter, you see the website. And it's basically made with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or TypeScript. When you go to an app, you don't expect that much thing. It will load slowly, but it will be complete. So you will have, it has to be flexible, portable. So you might want it to be a PWA, for example. And also you want to reach high performance. So if you have a big application, you want maybe multiple animation or tables, so I don't know, dashboards with graphics. you might go for WebAssembly. If you want some example of website, you have Flutter or Dart website. I don't know if you wanted to add something. So basically, what they wanted to show is Flutters website is only for searching. It's not application, and it's indexed. For example, if you look for a library, you can find it on top. But when it comes to web apps, they actually made Google Earth on web using WebAssembly. So if you go on it, what they said is like, what they try to say to show is, for example, Android, iOS, and web is using the same code base to show Google Earth, even on web. And Rive to make animation, and also Dartpad. So Dartpad is like online editor to run Dart apps, application apps, or just command line apps. And you can, it also has some games. If you want to try, you can see the code and run it in the browser. So what they announced for 3.22, it's WebAssembly stable. So now you can just, oh, okay, it's not here. So what they expect from it, it's that you have the native one, so Android, iOS, it's running fast. And WebAssembly is actually 2 times slower than native. But compared to JavaScript, when you compare with web, it's even slower. So it's twice faster than JavaScript. So they had like a small example here. I don't think you can see from here, but it's fast. So what about compatibility? So for now, Flutter by Google, it's available on Chrome. So what they needed from WebAssembly is the garbage collector. So the garbage collector, WebAssembly garbage collector is only available on Chrome 1.19, and Firefox is working on it. So they implemented, but they still have limitation. And Safari, we haven't heard about it. So to access, to compile an app, you compile on web, and you just specify, oh, I want it on WASM. And
Hello. Another feature that has been added to the stable is macros. Macros is a solution for the code generation. Like we always do the modeling in our programming language, it's in Android or Flutter. So right now we can use macros for the Dart, and we don't need to use build runner. Build runner is a code generation, but actually you have to run a command to generate your code. But macros are actually made with the augmentation classes, is a static programming language for making less boilerplate for your application, like from JSON to JSON or any other boilerplates. And is a compile time feature, so you can have your analyze option for that to check if you have any issue with your modeling. And what you can do, you can just add a meta, for example, JSON codable is a JSON generation, and you can use the macro within your generation folder. And there are some generated augmentation classes that you can use, for example, for the JSON and everything else. You can. There is also another feature. You can also add any generation tools within your programming, not only JSON, and you can use them within the augmentation classes. And for enabling macros, you have to first add this static number of the specific version of the Dart and Flutter, and then you can enable it in your analyze option in your project.
All right. So anyone heard of that? Someone is saying that Flutter is dying? Anyone heard of it? No? All right. It's okay. So Flutter is not dying. That's what I want to say. Because after Google I/O, everyone was saying that Flutter is deprecated. Google is going to use Kotlin multi-platform and so on. I'm surprised that actually Nav didn't express the Kotlin multi-platform a lot. But yeah, so here's the Google's official the recommendation of your cross-platform framework choice. So if you see, first one is if you want to use the latest feature of the Android, then what they're going to say, just use Kotlin. Makes sense. You want to make the Android application, so use Kotlin. But if you want to share the business logic code across the platform, like mobile, iOS, Android, and your web application, then what they're going to say, maybe you can try with Kotlin multi-platform, because now Google is officially support Kotlin multi-platform. But if you want to share UI code as well, beside of the business logic, then Flutter is still the thing, right? So if you want to share business logic and UI code across the platform, then try with a Flutter. That's basically the official statement. So that's what I want to say. And the article, I put the link here, this address. I'm going to share the slide later. But if you go there, this article is written by Android team and Flutter team together. So they are recommending this solution. Right? Billy, you want to do some summary?
So let's do the summary of the session. So during Google I/O, we actually announced multiple things. So with Flutter, you have now impeller, macros, WASM, and some few things about AI. So you have here some links you can read and maybe try. Now I think it's your turn if you want to try Flutter. There's multiple things to discover. And yeah, thank you.
All right, we have just one more session before we do the break.
Can you hear me in the back properly? Probably not. Is that okay in the back? Can you hear me properly? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Whoa, not like that. I'll go with the, give me that one. I think that'll be better. That's better. Okay, cool. Camera-wise, I'm supposed to be here. For the camera, is it on? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, well, thanks everyone. Just wanted to give you some news on what's new on Google Cloud. When it comes to I/O, I mean, it's not the place where you get the most Google Cloud news. So I kind of cheated and get some information from around everywhere, and put it in together. So just to give you some information we're going to go through, so just going to meet the GDG Montreal, Cloud Montreal team, because yes, we do exist. When I said I'm going to cheat just a little bit with some news, we're going to do some recap from Next 24. I'm going to give Google Workspace some love because it never gets love. There's not a meetup for it. So it's going to be one slide, but still, and it's linked to I/O, so it works. Then we'll tackle the what's new Google Cloud, and then we'll just talk about our next event. And I will be mindful of the time and the leftover pizza and beer in the back. So just to start, meet the Google Montreal team, which is basically myself. So Stacy Verano, I'm Director of Cloud Solution and Sales Engineering at SC Cloud Expert. We're a Google Cloud partner. Also with me, newly appointed co-org, Florian, thank you. App manager at Davidson. So great not to be alone to organize everything. I was not alone before, but there's some stuff where when your friends go work at Google, they can no longer be co-org, so you have to find replacement. So good stuff for having friends at Google, but thank you for jumping in, Lauren, really appreciate it. So from that, we're just gonna do a little quick next 24 TLDR. So basically, why there's no much news on Google Cloud at Google I/O, it's because there's a big party in Vegas before called Google Cloud Next. Basically, this year it moved from San Francisco to Vegas, was from April 9 to 11. It showcases everything around GCP itself. So it goes from even like low-level development to just like business C-level executive discussion. So at this event, you're able to cover all of this over 3 days. Of course, they've hijacked the sphere again, which was pretty cool. And also, like whatever, usually what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but there's 30,000 people who actually learn stuff about GCP, so we got out of there with a lot of information, so we're not, we're not keeping it in Vegas. And 2025, same thing, around the same time in April, is gonna come back, so it's the new home for Google Cloud Next. So what basically was covered, just highlights. There's like the new TPUs that were announced in terms of hardware. Also the Google Axiom, which is the silicon made by Google for their own data center, which was pretty neat. Of course, everything was mostly around AI. There's always AI somewhere. Not a surprise, I think, for everybody. And also with AI linked to helping developers, so like Code Assist, which is your Copilot equivalent, that was also like mentioned in Next. So I want to keep it short on Next 24. We're gonna give some workspace love, just one slide. Poor little guy. Use it every day, it's a great tool. There's no meetup around it, so not a big surprise that it was around AI again, like, and this was announced during I/O also. So basically Gemini 1.5 Pro was there, announced integration with Google Meet. So your transcription, basically, like you're taking notes from the meeting, transcription, give me a summary of the note, action items, that was there. So also like the AI workflow, so you're actually able to say, well, when this email comes in, start a draft with this, then give me a summary, then send it for approval. You are now able to do that within Google Workspace, which is pretty cool. The 1.5 Pro thing, which is interesting, is that if you're playing with Google Cloud and Vertex AI, where everything is in there, all the models, Gemini is there, so why is it a news in Workspace where it's already in GCP? Big difference is that it's basically two separate tracks. And 1.5 in Workspace gives you that 2 million token, multimodal, multi-language model baked into your collaborative tool, which is not the case when you're in GCP, which is the platform where you actually develop your stuff and your models. So I wanted to keep it on the timer. So Google Cloud, which is, I've mixed a bunch of stuff. I've mentioned Gemini 1.5. At I/O, one of the things that was actually announced around GCP was Gemini 1.5 Pro, but also Flash. So Pro is the model that can set here's all the extended version of Lord of the Ring, analyze this and make it a cartoon, and then 5 minutes later you have it. And then you have a bill of $20,000. But also, they've announced 1.5 Flash, which is made for speed. So if you have something which is sentiment analysis on live data coming in, you don't want a massive model working on that. You want a smaller one. So 1.5 Flash is purpose-built for those quick jobs that have like multiple inputs, like nonstop. So that's something that's super useful and was announced following 1.5 Pro at Next, the Flash one at Google I/O. So just want to pause a little bit. So since there's, like I said, like it's not, I/O is not where you get the most news. If you look at the cloud track at I/O itself, you'll actually see a lot of use cases. Like it's basically videos like I'm talking about, like leveraging cloud runs with Vertex AI, GKE, leveraging databases also to keep the information or your model you're retraining inside like a structured database. So basically what I wanted to do is to kind of summarize this in one a bit busy slide, I'll admit. But the idea is that if you're able to leverage Cloud Run on, which is your serverless piece on Google Cloud, if you're leveraging, or GKE, just still container-based, but can be fully orchestrated and can scale massively depending on your workloads, can also leverage GPUs. And if you're also using something like Postgres for storing your database, as a database to store your information, sorry about that, and wrap this with Vertex AI as a platform, because that's what it is, then you have massive benefits. You're able to make your development easier. You're able to scale. But most of the things that, yes, people will deploy, develop, and put massive amount of application that are making calls to Gemini 1.5 or whatever else. But then it's still something you still need to monitor. If this thing runs, you need to know what's happening. Like, how many querying and getting in? Is there a problem somewhere? Leveraging the entire platform itself brings monitoring inside the stack, inside your application. Then you actually have something that's deemed for production properly. So I wanted to cover that in this piece. One of the things that was not announced at I/O, but was announced at Next, and it looks like Splinter Cell 6 from, but that's not it. It's called like Vertex AI Agents, and it's not as fascinating as this. It's basically see agents as a no-code. It's a no-code store, I call it there, where you're actually able to integrate generative AI either from search, for chat, for dialogue, for a recommendation, but with a no-code approach. So I have a data source, I have an agent that's purpose-built, and I'm leveraging it to look at my documents or anything else that I have, and then I can actually just go through it. So I can say, I said conversational. I'm just going to go with the other one. Good example of this, and I'll show the data sources and the agent type after. I have a screen capture. So basically, if you want to do like customer support, maybe you have a massive hotline of all the calls coming in. You would like to scrape that data to figure out which is the biggest blocker, what gets escalated to level 2 or 3. Then you're able to put that data in through an agent and start getting those information out. So HR onboarding, same thing. Say, okay, well, here's your HR agent. It's like, I don't know, like what are the statutory holidays in this company? Is there any extra one? You ask the agent, which is like your chat bot, you get the answers because it feeds itself from the information HR provided. So always useful. Education and training, same thing. Like if you have a big catalog of information on in-house training, which is kind of linked also like to HR onboarding. But if you have like a library of information, you're able to leverage it. Also for healthcare, well, if you want to check schedule appointment and all that based on a calendar, that's a good opportunity for an agent. So mentioned the app type. So you can do search. I've mentioned, which is basically I need to search on a data source, which I'll define later. Then there's like the chat piece where you actually want to converse in back and forth with an agent to drill down, to like give me that type of information. Pseudo like at gemini.google.com, but straight on Vertex AI, so inside GCP. So it's not, you don't have to go to Gemini, you actually have something that's say internally, URL you hit, and then it's there. The recommendation piece, I've mentioned early on also, and then now it's like the agent at the end, which is really purpose-built natural language agents that you can select and build upon. Data sources, it's getting bigger. So what I was trying to say is like, for any agent, let's say if I'm looking for information on a website, internal or external, I can use the website content. This thing in 5 minutes, you actually have a little piece of snippet that you can inject in your website, or you can just test it out as a inside Vertex itself, which looks like if you're on your phone or just chatting with an agent, and it will feed itself from all the information from your website. So how do I contact XYZ? It has the information. So somebody said like I want like a floating agent on my website. You're able to do this in 5 minutes with So it's pretty straightforward. Same thing, well, BigQuery, if you have like structured data somewhere, you want to query it, you can use it as data source. Cloud storage and Google Drive are a really nice one. We've talked about like HR onboarding or just stuff like that. Or, I don't know, like you're in consulting firm, you're getting an RFP, and you want to know, how do we answer those RFPs in the past? You ask the agent who actually indexed everything that was, let's say, in Google Drive related to specific information. Then you're able to get the replies, and it's just like not an answer. You're actually able to converse and drill down your results. Of course, there's the other databases you can link into, and important ones like the API. So if it's not there, but there's an API and you can actually connect to it, parse the results, and feed your agent, then you actually have another source. Other sources like Confluence or even like OneDrive for Business or stuff that are coming. So if somebody is not like a workspace user, but like an Office 365 user, you still have data. It might be nice to leverage the platform on the Google Cloud side, but your data is inside the Microsoft ecosystem. You'll be able to link them together. So with all of this, and there's always like RAG, like retrieval augmented generation, where you want to validate, like, is my model actually like, where do I back myself up with? So if you're using Gemini.google.com, you'll have that little Google icon at the bottom. It's like, well, from this result, you're telling me, like, it's always the same example, like, tell me about the first elephant on the moon, and then it start hallucinating and giving you weird stuff. You can actually say, like, can you validate yourself? And it's gonna say, oh, actually, like, this is, like, I can't find any reference to this, so this is probably not accurate. The RAG piece on Vertex AI is that I can actually use it to say, you're only gonna validate the information you're giving us back. It's only valid versus like the data source I gave you. Like, don't go on the internet trying to learn something about, no, stay in your box. Your box is Google Drive, and stay there. So you know the information has been validated against itself, which, allows for less hallucination and more accurate data. So you're grounding your results based on a data source. So one last thing, I think, on the Vertex AI piece. It's a platform. One thing is called the Model Garden. So basically, you sit as a one-stop shop for models. So it's not because it's Google, it's only Gemini, and the rest is invalid. So there are multiple partners. Anthropic is one of them. Our friends from Meta also are there, Hugging Face. Gemma is there. So Gemma is basically your, I want to call it like open source. It's your open LLM straight from the Model Garden. So if you actually want to do specific stuff with Gemma, which is similar to Gemini, you're able to do it, but you're able to do it also offline, which is kind of interesting. Just to give you an example of the ecosystem, like Llama 3, from the announcement from the team at Meta to being available in the Model Garden was 20 hours. So there's a new model, you want to leverage it, you're on GCP, no problem. Just give it like a day or two, boom, it's there. So you can leverage it, so you're not bound to Google models if you want to. So good ecosystem, so that you're not, bound or stuck. Well, not stuck, but you have your choice. It's not like Google Cloud equals Google models. All right. So the next event there is GDG Cloud Montreal events. Usually it was all online since since COVID. We've been online. It's the first time we're actually seeing people in real life. Well, beside the fest last year, but I mean in general. So the next event itself, you can say I have way too much time with ideogram to generate like AI images. But July 10, so we'll have David Cardozo from UpData. He's gonna join us. He wanted to be here today, but the guy lives in Victoriaville, and it's like 42 outside, and he has to drive here. So like, no, stay home, man. He'll join us. This one's gonna be virtual because of time constraint. So we'll basically cover like Vertex AI pipelines and in an MLOps spectrum. So it could be really interesting. The event is still not in our platform. I'm gonna basically do it tomorrow. And I know that on July 10, there's also an event, but yours is at night, so you can do this during your lunchtime and then do the other one after. It's not a problem. We can do both. So yeah, so just like scan there is going to bring you to the GDG Cloud Montreal page so you can register, and then as soon as we have a new event, we'll post it up there. This one's going to be online. The next one in September will most probably be in person and also at Davidson, Canada. So they're going to host us there. So if I'm not mistaken, thanks everyone. Enjoy the pizza. Right, thank you very much. I think we don't have time for questions, but you can always come to us and ask questions during the break. So we're going to have 15-minute break from now on.